Checking, checking. Good morning, everyone. Checking, checking. Good morning, everyone. And I need to mute that video. So, can you still hear me? Or here's what I need to do. I need to change my sound. There we go. Good morning, Jim Janet. Good morning, Robin. Good morning, Rose. Good morning, Gail. Good morning from Iowa, Wisconsin, and Ontario. Yay. It's good to see you today. I've got my overhead camera view so that we can, when we want to use a dulcimer, we can talk about that and have the demonstration. And I have my guitar here so we can do the comparison of what happens with capos. So this question, and I'm glad you all can join us here. Hi, Cheryl Sands. Good to have you here. I'm glad to have you here. This came from a question from one of our DulcimerCrossing members who said, I'm playing. Let me type in the question so we can also see it. Hi, Nancy. Welcome. Here's the question. I'm playing, if I can spell and type, the guitar playing friend, and he uses a capo in the E minor shape, but what key am I in now? And this is that confusion thing of what happens with capos. So I wanted to answer that question and invite a conversation about your experience. But let me begin by just saying capo is an Italian word, capo, which means head. And what happens physically, I'm going to use a guitar first, it's chromatic, is this is the nut right here, and this is the head of the guitar. This is the bridge. Every time we move away from the nut to the bridge, we're going up. It doesn't matter which way you're showing your guitar. If it's vertical or horizontal, as you move up, you're going up in pitch. And so this is the laws of string physics. The thicker the string, the lower the string. So the lower string is thick down here, and this is the thin string, so you lower, thinner, lower. Looser, which is what we do with the tuning pegs, looser is lower, tighter is higher. And as we move up the fretboard and go toward the bridge, we're shortening the string. And that's the third principle of string physics. Shorter is higher, longer is lower. Now let's compare that with a mountain dulcimer. Our thickest string is furthest away from us, and so it's the lowest one. This is the nut, this is the bridge. Doesn't matter whether you play up like this or play flat. As you go toward the bridge, you are going up in pitch. And what happened, and so we're shortening and moving the string shorter. Shorter is higher, longer is lower. Same string physics principle that we had before. Now, what a capo or the capo in Italian does is, on a guitar or a banjo or mandolin, it shortens the string length. It makes my guitar shorter. And so now the strings are only going from here to here. And as I move it and bring it shorter, I'm bringing the head of the guitar closer to the bridge. That's the Okay. Okay, good. So those things are right. Um, Try refreshing your browser. Let me end it and restart. Oh no, let's not do that. Okay, good, excellent. I just added a poll. Can you vote to say if you can see and hear? Good. Excellent. Well, let me go back and start over. Let me go back and start over then. One of our students on Dulcimer Crossing, a mountain dulcimer student, said, I'm playing with my guitar friend, and he or she keeps using a capo, and what's going on? And so, hello, Joe. Hello to everyone. And we've got people from Louisiana to Ontario to Iowa, and I think we had Virginia in here. It's good to have everybody here. Michigan, Wisconsin. Yay. So I'm using a guitar because this was the person's question. When I'm playing with someone who's using the cable, what's going on? So let me review. String physics. There are three principles that get used in music. So the lower the string, the thicker it is. The thinner the string, the higher it is. On a guitar, the low string is the one that's closest to your face, and the high string is the one that's furthest away from you. On a mountain dulcimer, it's just reverse. I can tune and use my tuning pegs to detune or retune. And as I tighten it, it goes higher. As I loosen it, it goes lower. So that's the second principle of string physics. The third one is the longer the string, the lower it is. So whatever I have it tuned to is the longest the string is going to be. And as I shorten it by putting my fingers on frets, I'm making the string pitch go higher. And every time I move from the nut to the bridge, I'm going higher. It doesn't matter the orientation of the instrument, whether it's up or down or anything. It's all oriented by pitch. So when I say go down, I'm always going away from the bridge. If I say going up, I'm always going toward the bridge. And so on a mountain dulcimer, it's the same principle. On a hammer dulcimer, it's the same principle. You can see which ones are the longer strings and which ones are the higher strings. The difference here is that the low string is the one that's furthest away from you. It's the thickest. The thinnest string is the one towards you. As you tune, you're loosening and tightening. That changes things. But as you move your fingers toward the bridge, you're going up in pitch. As you move away from the bridge, you're going down in pitch. So a capo is an Italian word, capo. Italian for head, the capo. And in music, this gets used a couple different ways. If you're reading written music, Da capo means go to the head of the piece. Um, the beginning. So that's, if you see it written on the music, that's the first place you might have seen it before, is go back to the beginning, go da capo. But this tool for guitar is a kind of capo. There are other kinds. Classical capos look a little different, but what they do, I'm going to do this first, and then I'll show you the dulcimer. It shortens, it moves the head up. Okay, let me make a. Okay, it says it is being recorded. um, it says that this is normal. I've got a fast, really fast download and the normal upload, which is never as fast as I want it to be. So yes, it is being recorded and will be available later. Now the capo shortens the neck, the string length, and makes everything higher. So as I put my capo on, I'm making everything shorter. Because this is a chromatic instrument, it means that all I'm doing is changing the key. I can play the same shapes that I'm used to, but as I move it up further, I'm playing in a new key, and it's going to sound higher than what my shapes indicate. And we'll compare this to the dulcimer in just a minute, because there's a special case that's going on with the diatonic instrument. So, for example, I like to use this as an example. I first wrote this song in this. I liked it in G. I figured out a good finger picking way to play it. You and I agree we should live apart, but the miles that lay between us now are tearing up my heart. But as I lay me down, it was too low. You and I agree we should live apart. I feel sad, so sad to be here without you. I feel sad, so sad to see that I'm alone. Though I look at you and I'm glad. So it's very high in my voice, or it's very low in my voice. What the capo let me figure out is if I went up to the seventh fret, I could play the same shapes I was playing before, but now it sounds in the key of D. I'm playing G shapes. You and I agree we should live apart. The miles that lay between us now are tearing up my heart. So as I lay me down and pray your soul to keep. Don't think I can take the ache within, so I begin to weep. I feel sad, so sad to be here without you. I feel sad, so sad to feel that I'm alone. Though I look at you and I'm glad that you like to live your living. Still, I feel so sad when I cannot come along. So it moved it in a completely different place in my voice, and it let me still use these same shapes. So that was why I needed to use the capo and how it helped me. I worked out all this arrangement. I tried playing at different keys, but I didn't like it. I liked the fingering patterns I had worked out. So, what that means for us when we're playing with other people, I'm using the G shapes. And these are shapes that we often teach in workshops when you're playing with other people to be able to read, to play along in a jam. And this is where the first person's question came from. The G shape, this is when you're reaching across like this is the way a lot of people finger the G chord. If I'm playing the slant shape, that's a C chord. If I'm playing this little triangle that's hunched up over here on the higher strings, that's a D. So I can read the chords in a jam session and tell what we're playing. The problem came when you put the capo on. Where are we? The guitar player didn't know. All they knew was they played the capo here, and so they couldn't give the helpful hint. I'm playing capo at the 7th fret, which means that my G shape is now sounding like D. That's the question, and that's what I wanted to do today. So I want to share with you a page. Let me get to my file box. I do a lot of online teaching. Um, First with jam play. And for that, the difficulty when we were doing live Q&A sessions, I do 2 of those a week, was how do we share information with each other? And in this setting, I'm not even sure how to share a document. Let me look, because this is more new to me. Yeah, I don't think I can. So here's where I'm going to do it. In my, let's get in the file box. I have a file box. So I'm going to give you a link. Here's a link. Well, it may not be a link, but copy that. This is the translation tool. For guitar friendly keys and capo. Now let's see if I can share my screen. Let's see. Oh, share screen. Here we go. I can also do it this way. Yay. This is the tool I just gave you. And Let's see. I don't know that I have a pointer that I, oh yeah, can you see my pointer? The, when the chords are in this key, I'm using G as my example and I'm circling it right now. When the capo is at the first fret, it sounds like A flat or G sharp. These are the typical keys, chords you're going to use in that key. The handy dandy chord finder. Okay, Kay, click on the link I gave you or paste that in your browser and you'll be able to see it more clearly. Good, excellent. So the 145 key chords that we use with the handy dandy chord finder, we have a one. Those are the capitalized ones. One is G, two is A minor, three is B minor, four is C, five is D, and six is E minor. When I put my capo at the first fret, it sounds when I play G like we're in A flat. And I know this. I'm going to step away from this for a minute. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and come back to the camera for a minute. I'll go back in a minute. So when I do the G shape, what I know on a guitar that the bottom and the top strings are are both E's. They're the same pitch. So I can count up by chromatic notes E, F, F sharp, or G flat, G, and A flat. When I play in G, I'm going to have all the chords I need to sound like I'm in A flat because that's what's happening here. So if you can learn that for talking with your guitar friends, their bottom string and high string are E, which is like the first fret on a mountain dulcimer. So as I go up, I'm going to go by half steps. If I happen to put my capo at the second fret, it's not listed on this chart. But when I put my capo at the second fret, it's going to sound like A. Bluegrass guitar players will do this a lot. They'll play songs in A. The my latest sun is sinking fast. My rest is nearly won. And that helps them sing while not in the key that works for them, but without changing the chord shapes they already know. And as they move up, I'm going to go back to sharing now. As they move up, everything sounds a little bit higher. So going up one step gets me to A flat. Going up two, I didn't list it in here, is going to give me the note that's between A flat and B flat. And I didn't put them all in here because then we're seeing too much. And I put it at the spots where on a guitar there's usually a dot of some kind to indicate what fret we're on. So capo 2 is going to sound like A. Capo 3 is going to sound like B flat. Capo 4 is going to sound like B. Capo 5 is going to sound like C. Capo 6 is going to sound like C sharp or D flat. Capo 7 is going to sound like D. In that example of what I gave you when I was playing that song, I was playing capo 7, and so it sounded like D. And for dulcimer players, I think that one sounds a little more familiar, right? Now, I did this with these other ones as well. So here's the key of D, which we may be used to seeing guitar players play. In which case, let me just demonstrate those. I'm going to stop sharing so I can demonstrate that. This little triangle right here is what is the shape that guitars use for D. They're often reaching all the way across for G, and then they're going to have three in a row, and it's going to be tight for their fingers, so they might use different sets of fingers depending on who they are. but it's going to be in the second fret. They're going to be doing this for the A. So the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Or they might be using an A7, which will have a couple of fingers, but everything is in the second fret. So we have the triangle, the stretch, and something in the second fret. That would be what's happening. I'm going to share the screen again. When we're using these, and as they move up, you can see we're in a different key. Now, I want to just stop and see. Okay. Now I want to, how do I get to this next one? I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm trying to, trying to give you a new poll. Okay, I was trying to ask. Okay, good, Gail. I don't quite know how to open my poll because okay, I have to publish the results. Okay, so here's the new poll. No, 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 no. There we go. Here's the new poll. Just to check. Excellent. You can also vote in the chat where it says vote. So we have a couple of yeses, we have a sort of, and we have a not really. What the capo does, just to review, is shorten. The capo shortens the length. We're getting to that, Joe. Hang on. I wanted to do the chromatic instrument first because as the strings get shorter, the pitches go higher, and there is a direct relationship. All I have to do is keep the same shape, and I keep moving higher in pitch. And it's very direct and clear. There are some people that call capos cheaters. I call them tools. And humans are some of the sentient beings that use tools to get our jobs done. And I demonstrated a song that when I first wrote it was in a place that it didn't work. And when I moved it up, it was something that could work. There it is. Okay, good. There might be some buffering issues. Since we're all at home, there the internet. I have a friend who actually worked on building the bones of the internet back in the 1980s, early 80s, and he said it's holding up, but it's really being stressed right now. So it doesn't matter where you are. I'm in Silicon Valley. I have a very it's fast. So we have Capos. Well, I live in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, probably the fastest internet you're going to find anywhere. And still there's going to be problems because everybody's using it. It used to be there were problems only at night, but now during the workday, it's also happening. So on a diatonic instrument where the frets are not chromatic, when you have a whole step, and I have a 1.5 fret here on this instrument. So then I have 2 half steps and another one, then a whole, half, 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 whole. It's not exactly the same, but here's what, just to clear up one bit of confusion. If your guitar player friend puts their capo at the first fret to play in to play in anything, it's not going to work for you to put your capo at your first fret and match. Um, so this is where it's going to be later. I'm sorry that we're experiencing some difficulties right now. But just to review, if my guitar playing friend puts their capo any fret there, it will not directly correspond to what I'm doing with mine. On a diatonic instrument, now let me get when I put a capo on, I'm doing the same thing of shortening the strings, but I'm not just changing the pitch, I'm also changing the mode of what's available. Now, first thing to say is that capos are a very new invention, which I mean by the 1970s. Until dulcimers didn't have frets until the post-war era, post-World War II era. And when people began building dulcimers with frets that went all the way across the fretboard, then it became possible. People began to think, what happens if I put a capo on here? But typical capos have to wrap around the instrument. And when I can't get a capo to go around, some people used a chopstick and covered all the strings and used rubber bands and things like that. It wasn't until people said, "Oh, what if we just figure out a way to put the capo across the strings on the top? Will that work?" The other thing was people were tuning into all kinds of tunings anyway, so they didn't think about using a capo. In the late 1980s, David Schnaufer and other people apparently had a meeting. I was not invited and I was not even informed that we moved to everything being in D and moving more toward the 158 or the DAD tuning. What that was useful for is when I'm tuned in the 158 or DAD, when I put a capo on, I'm raising the pitches of the whole instrument in ways that let me play more flexibly. So if I'm playing my D chord, which is 002, and I play my G chord 013, and I'm always calling my chord numbers from the bass first. And a 101, when I'm playing them open, so I have my 1 chord, my 4 chord, and my 5 chord. If I think about them in terms of numbers rather than names, get used to saying that. And let's use Oh Susanna. Oh, you come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I'm going to Louisiana, my good friend, for to see. Now, that let me use just 2 chords, my D and my A, or my 1 and my 5. It's not till the chorus that goes, oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me. So I only use that once, the G. Don't you cry for me, or come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. If I move up to the 3rd fret, it's going to be similar to what happens on a guitar. And now, if I count my shapes away from the capo, as if I'm 2 away from the capo, that will be my 1 chord, a G. My 013 shape will be a C. My 101 shape will be a D, but it's on the 1, 4, 5. Oh, I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee, and I'm going to Louisiana, my good friend Joe, to see. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me, for I come from Alabama with the banjo on my knee. Now, because I'm not renumbering the frets when I put the capo on, and that's the same for the guitar. You don't renumber the frets from the capo. You let 0 be where the 3rd fret was. And this is one of those questions. I'll just put it in here. Let's see, put that. So in tablature, we don't renumber. But for the purposes of transferring our information and our knowledge, if I use the same shapes of chords that I used before, they now work in this new location. So 3rd fret, G, D, D shapes. And I want to pause and let that sink in. Does that make sense? Now what I'm going to do is move it 1 fret higher. When I go to the 4th fret, A sounds when playing D shapes. I need a 6+ fret. for this location to work. Oh, good. I'm glad you're thinking about shapes because it makes things more transferable. Now, 2 frets away is going to be, here's what happens when I put my capo at the 4th fret, it's like I have a 1.5 fret. So if you don't have a 1.5 fret, this is probably really confusing. If you do, it's like, oh yeah. And if you'd ever want to think about, should I put a 1.5 fret on my instrument or get an instrument with a 1.5 fret, this is a way to test that theory. But going to 6.5, so the fret is going to be 006.5. The shape is going to be the same as a 002 when it's open. And then 057 is the same as a 013. And a 505 is the same as a 101. I'm doing the same shapes, and it's going to sound like a, oh, I come from Alabama with a dulcimer on my knee, and I'm going to California, my good friend, for to see. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me, for I'm going to California, my good friend, for to see. Let me do everything in the shapes I learned in D, which I transferred to G at the 3rd fret. I moved to the 4th fret, I transferred it to A, and it still all worked using the chords. Now the melody stuff is going to be different, and that's how the capo is different on the mountain dulcimer. Just pause for a minute to let that sink in. I'm going to put my capo back on 3. If I did not have a 6.5 fret, getting your capo seated is the important thing. I did not have a 6.5 fret, starting at 3 and playing to 10 is the way the dulcimer is designed. The melody is designed with no extra frets to play the major scale that we're used to from 3 to 10, which is why DAA was the premier way of playing, and the way a lot of us learned, because then we'd have notes below do and wouldn't have to leave the melody string. The conversation for a different time, but if we do this, we have that. When I move, that lets me play melodies that I might be used to in D in G. But if I put it here, I don't have that note I'm looking for at the top of the scale. It's like using the 6th natural fret when I'm playing from D to D. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G natural, da, 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 da. That's old Joe Clark is in the outside world, outside of the dulcimer world, is an A tune. And this is the way for me to play with other people in A, is tuned to the 4th fret and start at 8. It's going to feel like when I played it in D down here. So when I play at 0, no capo. When I play at 3, I'm going to have the major scale I'm used to. When I'm at 0, I need to use 6.5. When I'm at 3, I need to use regular 6. When I'm playing at the 4th fret, I can play almost the major scale on the melody string to sound like A. The one note that's going to be different is this flatted 7 here, the old Joe Clark note. I do have that note. It's going to be at 13.5 on the middle string. So it's here on the dulcimer, but it's not in the straight line. Is this, I hope it's just not blowing everything open. I hope it's opening some possibilities and things. You'll notice we didn't, like on the guitar, there is this mathematical relationship I showed you in that particular thing. I was looking for my file. Let's see, where's my Oh, that's the problem. It's on a different computer. I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to add that page. So if I now go to my first fret, which is where we started, and my friend put their capo at the first fret, and I did, and it didn't come out good. When I'm at the first fret, starting at 0, I'm now you can tell I moved into a minery place. So this is what a lot of us are used to doing when we put our capo on in the first fret. We doing that to play an E minor. We've learned to do it. We may not understand it. It's similar to tuning to DAC without a capo, because our first note of the scale is at the first fret, and every time we do that, we get the Aeolian mode. If we use the regular 6, if we use the 6.5, we get the Dorian mode of E. So the 6.5 fret gives us the possibility of 2 different options. Right now, I want to make the connection with chords, because if I go 2 away from the capo, it's similar to playing 1-1-3, which is the E minor shape we're used to. So if I do that, and then I play the 0-1-3, what am I doing? I'm getting E, C, and A minor. So I have an E minor chord, an A minor chord, an E minor chord, and then this would be the equivalent of a B. So my one chord, I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee, going to California, my good friend, for to see. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me, for I'm going to California, my good friend, for to see. It made it all minor. I used the same shapes, but it made it minor, which is part of the cool thing of what's happening with the dulcimer. So if I play at 0, 3, and 4, I'm going to have major sounds when I use my capo, or when I use my regular chord shapes. But starting at the first fret, I'm having a minor related chords. Isn't that cool? Now that will also work at the 5th fret. Now I'm in B minor. Boiling cabbage down, boys, turn them hoe cakes round. The only song that I can sing is boil them cabbage down. Or come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Going to California, yeah, my good friend, for to see. Oh, Susanna, now don't you cry for me. Well, I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Let's see if it'll work at the 2nd fret. Ah, it doesn't quite work the same at the 2nd fret, because we have a flatted 2nd step of the scale. So it works at 1 and at 5. So let me type this in. And the numbers are where we're putting the capo. So this corresponds to the way the chords work on the dulcimer. If we use our L, let's go back with no capo and just use the L-shaped chord and watch what happens. 002 is a D chord. If I go 113, it's the same L shape. I have an E minor. Second, 224. Yay, Joe, I'm glad. 224 is an F sharp minor. 335 is a G major. Now, if I do 446, this is where the 6.5 can confuse and help things. If I go 446, it's going to be minor. But with the 6.5 fret, I've got the major option. When I go to 557, I've got B minor. When I go to 668, I've got a C natural. And if I go to 6.5, 6.5, 8, I've got a C sharp minor. Whoa! It's predictable, thing that I think is most helpful. Excellent. Yay. Understanding is my goal. And just so that you know, this is how I do it. When I'm testing, how am I doing? I give myself 1/3 out of 100. I give myself 30, a third points for comprehending the concept. Another third for demonstrate, for playing it. The final third for showing it to another or helping them comprehend it. And that means I understand it. So it's, can I wrap my head around the idea? Can I do it? Can I help someone else get it? Those 3 steps. And when I get all 3, then I give myself 100%. There are a lot of things that I can comprehend that I can't do. There are some things I can do I may not even be able to comprehend yet. And when I put those 2 things together in a way that can help someone else understand it, that's when I really understand. And this was when I did, I earned a Master of Music Education degree. This is the model that we worked with. And creating situations in which people can do the task that we have a concept. Can you demonstrate it for me? That demonstrates your understanding. So that's behind everything I'm doing. And in the lessons that we prepare for DulcimerCrossing, in the live events that we're doing, that's the way that's what I'm trying to do. So now that's what I had to share with you today. And I will add the mountain dulcimer and capo chords handout to the DulcimerCrossing.blog with this archive video. Also, take a look at the free page on DulcimerCrossing. There's a lot of theory tips there. For everyone who is a member of Dulcimer Crossing, let's pull that up. I'm going to just show you. I'm going to share my screen again. Share screen. I want to share the application window. When you're on Dulcimer Crossing, if you click free, there are all these different, there's ways to use the lesson and all that stuff. But here's general music theory, which talks about some of the things that go behind everything. It doesn't matter what instrument you're on. And there's the theory for the mountain dulcimer specifically. There's also a section on theory for the hammer dulcimer. And these are some descriptions of things which could help you. I also want to show you premium members. Let me log in. When I'm logged in, premium members, when you're logged in, your screen looks blue. Basic members, when you're logged in, your screen looks yellow. Now, if I'm here and I go down to the live events page, this is where everything is hosted. This is the one we're going through right now, and this is where the archive will be. This will also be on the basic page. And some of you found the link here. But these other ones, we have, Aaron May and I have been doing a leap forward in your musical understanding, doing theory classes. And we spent the first 4 weeks of the year, every other week, doing hammered dulcimer, mountain dulcimer things, particularly looking at the modes. Matthew Dickerson did one in middle of March to focus on developing chord knowledge, specifically focused on hammer dulcimer. Aubrey Atwater is going to do keys, tunings, and modes in April. So that one's coming up. And then we're going to have several other of our teachers throughout the rest of the year. And premium members have access to that. So that's, there you go. So that's where these things will be available. I thank you for tuning in to this first ever live event. If you have some feedback, email me at steve@dulcimercrossing.com. And thank you all very much. Thank you. We're doing our best to stay safe. I got home. I've passed my 14-day quarantine from my spouse and I since I got back home from being with you, Joe, in Louisiana. And I hope you all are well. I'm glad we have these technology things that can help us get through this difficult time. Even better, we have our instruments to play the music that helps us get through. I wish you all well and send you greetings from Linda Ratcliffe, my co-founder of Dulcimer Crossing, and me and all of our teachers. And I'll look forward to seeing you again in the future. Bye.